The Seven Kingdoms needs a ruler loved by millions with a powerful army and the right family name.
Good luck finding him.
Who said anything about him?
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
Scores of Ministry of Works employees protest over hazard pay. There's already been some pushback and concern over the new immigration bill. Bahamen's still awaiting confirmation on the Junkanoo Carnival headliner. Plus, students get a lesson on the dangers of sexting. We've got those stories and more coming up tonight. I'm Dana Smith, and MB12 starts right now. Helping news tonight, things got heated at the Ministry of Works this morning as scores of employees blocked access to a gas pump at that department in protest of overdue hazardous pay. Now, where the problem comes in is that pump provides fuel for many government vehicles, which were forced to park and wait or seek fuel elsewhere. The workers even went as far as to chain the pump and refused to take orders from ministry security. Things only got worse when a cabinet minister showed up to address the crowd. Kyle Joaquin was there for all the action.
Listen, please. That's fine. Listen, please. Listen.
It was a tense scene at the Ministry of Works this morning as they took their protest to another level. For months, workers have waited to receive hazardous pay promised to them in an industrial agreement. After several protests and broken promises, the workers got fed up today and took matters into their own hands. They blocked access to the pump that provides fuel for several government cars.
Now, to show how serious these employees were about getting their hazardous pay, they wasted no time in placing a lock and chain on this gas pump.
At one point, things got a bit physical just as our news team was conducting an interview.
Someone hustling trying to get gas.
Executive Vice President of the Bahamas Public Services Union, Kimsley Ferguson, said it had to get to this level because they were repeatedly told that they would get their money. However, when they went to the bank, he said it wasn't the case.
In August, we were assured when the boycott of the opening of the Paul L. Adley building was taking place that the week after that, the persons would have been sorted out. That didn't happen. Shortly before the Christmas, the guys were promised that they would be sorted out. Apparently, that didn't happen either. And on a number of other occasions, we were told that it would be sorted out, and to no avail. And so hence today, we were promised payday, which was Wednesday, that it would be sorted out. And it has not been sorted out, and there's no definitive answer or response on when we would be able to get sorted out. And so hence the guys are gathering here this morning.
According to Ferguson, hundreds of employees are affected by the lack of hazardous pay, which he said amounts to the hundreds of thousands. Police officers eventually arrived at the ministry to try and control the situation. Several vehicles being driven by Defense Force officers headed to the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting were also prevented from getting gas. This worker who had his bus blocking the entrance was told to move by officers. But because he claims it broke down there, his colleagues helped him by pushing the vehicle. Eventually, the Minister of State for Works, accompanied by the Permanent Secretary and the BPSU President, came out to address the crowd. However, when he told workers that their matter would be addressed in the upcoming cabinet meeting, they got even more upset.
Give Mr. Forbes a chance.
We just got off a conference call with the Deputy Prime Minister, who's the Minister of Works, and he's committed. We will deal with this on Tuesday in Cabinet. Hello, hello, hello. We will deal with this on Tuesday at Cabinet, and we can guarantee you, if we can process it through finance earlier, you will get your vouchers and be paid. We're committed to all Bahamian workers. All Bahamian workers. Listen. Once it goes before Cabinet on Tuesday, finance will deal with it very quickly, and we assure you that you will be paid either by voucher before the next payday or by latest the next payday.
I did some overtime. I've been working here 40 years. Yes, I went in the PS office with my colleague and got that sign, a proof that I worked. I was supposed to receive that at the end of this month. I didn't get it. And that's my problem right there, you know. You keep telling me things, and then it ain't happening.
There have been a number of staff that have invariably passed away since we did the calculation. There are some new staff that were not on the original approved list that we are now putting on the list, so they have to be added to it. And as the Deputy Prime Minister said, he will take the paper to Cabinet on Tuesday.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
It's only been 2 days since Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration Fred Mitchell tabled the Immigration Amendment Bill. While Mitchell has insisted the bill would bring about the reform that many people have been asking for, he says there has already been pushback and confusion concerning the bill. Jasmine Brown has more in this report.
According to Mitchell, some in the community are still unclear on the bill he tabled earlier this week, but he insists immigration officials plan to address their concerns.
Well, first of all, the pushback on this has been largely overblown. People did not take the time to study what the proposals are.
Mitchell says much of the pushback has centered around the issue of a belonger's permit. The bill, among other things, would provide for the introduction of a resident belonger's permit to cover foreigners who are constitutionally entitled to apply for Bahamian citizenship on their 18th birthday. According to the bill, a resident belonger's permit could be granted to a person born in the Bahamas to non-Bahamian parents who is entitled to apply for registration as a citizen and is residing permanently in the country at the time the application is made. Those who were born outside the Bahamas to a Bahamian man or woman who is married to a foreigner are also eligible to apply for a resident belonger permit. The permit would entitle an individual to live and work in the country for a period, which would be determined by the Director of Immigration. According to the regulations, which were distributed in Parliament, the permit would be valid for 3 years or less.
I don't want to give the impression that this bill, apart from the issue of the belonger's permit, which is a specialized product, if you will, or a specialized instrument to facilitate those who were born here to non-national parents. But this bill was not necessary to support the policies which we announced.
Mitchell says considering there is confusion on the issue, the Immigration Ministry will have to clear it up.
I think the ministry itself will probably issue some clarifications on this.
The bill also seeks to establish an immigration reserve similar to the police reserve. The bill would also give the Minister of Immigration the power to establish a detention center at one or more locations in the Bahamas. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Deputy Law Reform Commissioner Cheryl Grant Bethel and former acting magistrate Gregory Hill were sworn in as acting Supreme Court judges this morning. Attorney General Allison Maynard Gibson said although she was unable to attend the swearing-in ceremony, she is very proud of both Grant Bethel and Hill.
First of all, I would like to congratulate both of them, the new justices Grant Bethel, Cheryl Grant Bethel, and Gregory Hilton. I want to say that I am very happy for them, very proud of them. I'm very confident. I wish them every success. I'm very confident that they will demonstrate to the Bahamas and the world their considerable intellectual prowess. I also believe that they will uphold every letter of the oath that they took and also demonstrate to Bahamians and thereby to the world also that the rule of law reigns supreme in the Bahamas.
Back in 2010, while under the Ingram administration, there was much controversy surrounding Grant Bethel when she sued the Bahamas government for sidestepping her for the post of Director of Public Relations and transferring her to the Law Reform Commission. Maynard Gibson said from then to now, she believes that Grant Bethel brings a depth of experience to the judicial system, and she is expecting to see many changes in law in the Bahamas.
Mrs. Grant Bethel, history will show, is one of a star prosecutor. She is certainly, if one of the best prosecutors that this country has ever produced. She served with distinction while she was a prosecutor in the Office of the Attorney General. I can speak from my experience with her the last time I was the Attorney General in 2006-07. Since then, she's also served with distinction as a Deputy Director of Law Reform. So she brings, as well as her considerable experience in the criminal courts, and remember, judges don't just sit on one side. As a Deputy Director of Law Reform, she will be very experienced in drafting legislation and therefore interpreting it also.
Maynard Gibson said the two judges were appointed to work in the new criminal courts that should be operational next month.
Of course, it will also enable us, starting, we're grateful to the Chief Justice and the Judicial and Legal Service Commission for making the appointments, because it now means that the 10 courts that the executive made available will now be manned, so to speak, although there will be a woman sitting there. And so we'll be having, as of next month, which starts next week, 10 criminal courts sitting. This means that from 2012, when we had 6 criminal courts sitting, we will now in 2015, as the Prime Minister has indicated, have 10 criminal court sitting.
Public Service Drivers Union President Richard Johnson held a press conference to address some unfinished business within the union. He responded to Baha Mar's plans to modernize the taxi industry, suggesting drivers get little to no respect when decisions that would directly affect them are being made. Simone Davis reports.
After publicly apologizing for a taxi driver's confrontation with the Prime Minister at Bahamas Business Outlook last month, the union president suggested that taxi drivers control the taxi business, not the government.
This comes nearly 1 month after more than 30 bus drivers were up in arms with the Ministry of Transport and Aviation after a bus stop was relocated downtown. Johnson added that these types of issues occur because members of the transportation industry are not consulted before government makes drastic decisions.
We are an actor, and we should be at the table when the policies are being made that are going to affect the business that the sector represents.
He also mentioned a proposal released by Baha Mar on Friday, which required only vehicles of a certain make and model be approved for taxicab services at the resort, adding that those vehicles be no more than 5 years old. Johnson suggested that he doesn't believe those requirements are fair because there are many taxi drivers who don't meet those requirements and can't afford newer vehicles who are eligible to be drivers.
That cannot be fair. We have done all the work. The Public Service Drivers Union was the one who's been pushing this initiative for the last 20 years. And so we were disappointed, and we have registered our disappointment. And in fact, I've written Mr. Sarkis Ismarillion.
He noted that many of his taxi drivers were denied to do business because of underlying issues in the industry from 20 years ago. Johnson said these issues, along with the bus drivers being chosen for more jobs, has left taxi drivers to hustle just to make a penny.
My members are taxi drivers who work from those three places that I mentioned, and they are hustling. They virtually have to go on Prince George Dock in the early morning, line up for a fare and to do business with the cruise lines, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to get 1 or 2 jobs, because most of the business is being given to the buses.
The union president, who refers to himself as a one-man band, says there have been far too many failed attempts to organize taxi drivers in the business sector, which is killing the industry.
The Public Service Drivers Union, over the last 20 years, we've been lobbying successive governments to do three things. One, give the outright ownership of the taxi franchise to franchise holders if they're taxi drivers. Two, we would like for the government to recognize a value for the taxi franchise. And three, we are asking for the concession for taxi drivers to be responsible for the ground transportation business from the dock, the airports, and the hotels.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Simone Davis.
Police are investigating the alleged drowning of a 38-year-old tourist at Disney's private island in the Abacos. According to reports, shortly before 4 p.m. yesterday, the visitor allegedly drowned while swimming in waters off Castaway Cay, which is the exclusive port for Disney cruise ships. The victim, who is originally from New York, was a passenger on board a ship moored at the island, according to police, who say an autopsy will be performed to determine the exact cause of death. You're watching the best in Bahamian news. There's more when NB12 returns.